Alexa, what temperature is it?
Right now, it's 16 degrees. Tonight, expect a low of 6 degrees.
16 degrees, my poop. This may or may not make the show, Bill, but I want to complain. This isn't on the show notes.
Okay.
But I'd like to start with complaining to warm up the voice. I just said to you, I've started running again. And I've been doing some serious kilometers. I think I ran something short of 150 kilometers last month. Which is really good for me. So I'm putting in some serious time. And I do all my running in a park close to us. And I don't live in the best of areas. It's not the worst area, but it's not great. And every so often, you kind of are reminded of how bad the area is based on the level of delinquency that goes on in the park, particularly in August when the schools are out. So it happens all day. I went for my run yesterday, and there were 2 separate packs of children, like say between the ages of like maybe 10 and like maybe 13, building huge fires in the park. And one pack had built fires up against trees, which was just like, what are you doing? This is ridiculous. So I'm there running, and I do my best to avoid them whenever this happens, because the big packs of children are problematic. I'm doing a lap of the park, and as I come around one lap, I see the fire brigade has showed up, and they're extinguishing the fires and shooing away the children. And that's fine, that's grand. And I walk around again, or I run around again. And then the next time I come around, the fire brigade is in like a standoff with the kids, and the kids are like throwing rocks at the fire brigade over like this fence, and it's like turned into like Beirut. Like it was awful. And as I was running, I was doing my best to avoid the pack of kids, but this one kid, whilst throwing a rock at the fireman, he kind of stepped back and he bumped into me, and like I was like, "Watch it there, pal," and that's my exact quote. And he turns, and like he was going to kill me. Like he was proper like, "You watch it." And I was like, "Shit, I better pick up my speed." I ran a really great kilometer after that one. But anyway, so then I come around again, and the fire brigade had moved on, and the pack of children had moved up the park somewhat. And the same kid is on a bike this time, and he looks at his friend. I'm coming at him. He looks at his friend, and he goes like, "Watch this," and then he cycles the bike straight at me. And like I dodged him, but like had I been less aware, like and noticed that he had pointed to his friend, "I'm going to cause ructions here," he would have just completely clattered me. Like, and it's so bad. Like and it makes me so angry because it just destroys public facilities, and the poor fire brigade like getting rocks thrown at them. Oh, it was awful, man. It was awful. So I just want to complain, and I want to also say thanks to the fire brigade for being class and like sorting out the area. But yeah, it's terrible stuff.
That's pretty bad.
Yeah,
Jesus.
It's not great now. One day I'll live in Killiney and everything will be fine in the world.
Yeah, but then it'll be surrounded by kind of people that live in like rich suburbs.
Yeah.
That'll be terrible.
That's fair. That's fair. Like, yeah, Bono is there, and that's problematic. For anyone who is not from Ireland, Killiney is like the most affluent area of Dublin, where all the like Irish celebrities live. And this brings me on to the first actual official item of follow-up, Bill. In the last episode, we talked about climbing things. You had climbed hills in Scotland, and I was on about climbing mountains around the world, essentially. And I got thinking, I was like, with the way I'm running now, I'm looking to run a marathon, number one, like really like up the game. And then I got thought to myself, if I like climbing mountains and hills and stuff, why don't I start running up hills? And then I discovered that there's this whole trail running community in Ireland that you can join, who like everyone gets carted out to some mountain and you go run up the mountain. And there's like a beginner's loop around Killiney, like that really affluent area, that you can do. And it's got a 100-meter elevation increase over the run, and it's 12 kilometers. So it's not ridiculously terrible, but it's not easy either. So I'm half thinking I might end up going for a jog around Bono's back garden sometime. Might be a bit of crack, you know. That way I can say I can run up mountains, not just climb them.
So you wanna run up that hill?
I want to run up the hill in preparation for running up the Sugarloaf. Again, for people who don't know, the Sugarloaf is a fairly big mountain in Wicklow, County Wicklow, which is the next county down from Dublin, like south of Dublin. And I think it's about 0.5 kilometre in the sky. So it'd be fun if I was able to run up that guy, which is an official trail. But that might take me many years of practice, because that's not easy to do. So yeah, the last talk about big mountains got me inspired to run up them.
If only you could make a deal with God and get him to swap our places.
Get him to swap your places? Why would we swap our places? Do you want to run up a mountain?
I'm not going to explain that. That's an Easter egg for any eagle-eared listeners. I'm just going to move on from that.
Oh no, I want to know. This is terrible. Oh. I hate when you do this. So one last thing. Again, this is not in the show notes, but it just popped in my head. I want to complain about some Wikipedia anti-rural Ireland propaganda with regards to mountains.
Hit me.
So the Sugarloaf, again, for people, that's in County Wicklow, and it's a mountain. I think it's officially classed a mountain, and it's about 500 something kilometers high.
It is not 500 kilometers high.
Oh, sorry. 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 500 meters, Bill. Oh god! All right, so the Sugarloaf, 500 kilometers high, is a mountain, right? And it's officially classed a mountain. According to Wikipedia, the Great Sugarloaf is also known as the Big Sugarloaf, or often simply as the Sugarloaf, and it is a mountain in the East County Wicklow in Ireland, right? Elevation 501 meters, right? Now, where I grew up in rural Ireland in the west, there's a mountain right next to my house. Like, literally my backyard is the foothills of a mountain. Now, we've always referred to this thing as a mountain. It's called Slieve right? But if you go to Wikipedia and you look at Slieve I'll leave links in the show notes. It says, if I can find the page, hold on. Give me a second.
The Iron Mountain. That is so cool.
Oh, balls. No way. Hold on. It hasn't changed, has it? Oh my god, maybe it's changed. Okay, so I looked at this a while ago, and it was like Slieve an imposing, in quotes, mountain, was the quote from Wikipedia. And I was like, screw you, Wikipedia. What do you mean an in quotes mountain? Like, it was real sassy on the part of Wikipedia. And I showed it to the captain, and we had a laugh about it and stuff, but now I can't find it. Oh man, that's terrible. Oh god, I'm gonna have to cut this now, because I was really angry. I was like, if Slieve was in Dublin, it would be like, oh, the largest mountain in Ireland. But because it's in the west, it was all like it's a, in quotes, mountain. The rural people and their mountains. I was like, oh, very angry. But anyhow, so that needs to be written off.
Oh no, it's still there if you go to the geography.
Okay, hold on. Slieve
in the current, it's like the geography headline.
Yes, that's it. There we go. So, yes, I'm glad it's in here. So, geography, Slieve is an imposing, in quotes, mountain. And I was like, oh my god, that's so derogatory, Wikipedia. I hate you so much. So that needs to be removed. Someone please go to Wikipedia and edit that. What makes this bad is that the elevation of it is 585 meters, right? Which is a whole 84 meters larger than the Sugarloaf. So if the Sugarloaf is a mountain, then Slieve is a mountain, and we need to change this. I don't have the technical know-how to edit Wikipedia. Someone else do this. It needs to change.
Okay, to play devil's advocate here, you're a lot further inland than the Sugarloaf is, so it's less. It may be less high in relation to the surrounding landscape than the Sugarloaf is. So it might be higher, but it might not be as tall.
Yeah, I don't know. I'd have to look into what exactly determines mountains, but I don't know. Just on a first reading, it's a bit derogatory when the feckin' thing is taller. Like,
It is. No, I mean, I'm inclined to agree with you. I'm inclined to agree.
Anyhow, so that riled, and I'm usually not like patriotic and stuff, but that one kind of really got, it's like the quotes, the quotation marks. It's an imposing mountain. Oh, just, what are you doing, Wikipedia? It's awful.
I do want to point out
You do.
that if you go further down in the contents, section 5 of the article is in mythology, and section 5.3 says ancient aliens.
No.
Some fringe historians suggest a passage in the Book of Invasions concerning the appearance of the Tuatha De Danann in Ireland records, in quotes, the arrival of aliens in spacecraft with cloaking devices, end quotes, at Sliabh an Éireann.
Man, that is class. Like, it's obviously paper
That's
bullshit,
class.
but that's brilliant. There's
It's very, very cool.
and a somewhat less interesting, albeit more kind of legit story, is that on top of Sliabh an Éireann, I used to climb the thing when I was younger. It's not a hard climb; you just walk up the thing. And on like near the very very top, there's this like big rock, and it looks really out of place. It's obviously been like spat up there by glaciers when they plowed through the area, but it looks really out of place now. It's huge, gigantic rock and nothing but like ferns surrounding it. And the story is, so our house sits in a valley between two mountains. One is Sliabh an Éireann and one is Arigna. And the story is that there was almost Lord of the Rings style giants fighting, and they were one on each mountain, and they were hurling rocks at one another as like projectile weapons. And that was one of the projectiles that was thrown. And as a kid, like sitting on that rock and looking out over the lake and onto the other mountain, it just filled me with the greatest sense of awe. I was like, there were giant, like before I was born, there were giants here, and they like had war with one another, and it's cool. I was young Edgar really liked it.
That's very cool.
Anyhow. Mountain talk. Do you have anything else to add about mountain talk, or should we proceed on to like some actual world building?
I have nothing else to add about mountain talk.
So last podcast, we talked about my video on alien atmospheres, and we had a conversation about the ice problem, like this idea that hydrogen fluoride ice either sinks or freezes from the bottom up, like it does the opposite of water, and how that would be very problematic. We just found out that I had contacted my chemist friend for clarification of this, and it turns out, like the idiot that I am, I asked him what the crack is with hydrogen chloride ice, and not hydrogen fluoride ice. So that was a bit of a write-off on our part. Nevertheless, we got some really cool solutions from the subreddit. One that I thought was really class from Resoc, u/Resoc, was the notion that marine life would produce a sort of natural antifreeze. So even if stuff were to freeze around or whatever, they could just like thaw it out or whatever, which I think is really cool. And it was very similar to a E.Price, E_dot_price, who had this notion of chemical thawing. In addition to loads of other cool ideas, this person had, like, they had the notion of like marine creatures having hard skulls or horns to, like, if the ice did sink, they'd be able to like bash their way through it, almost like an icebreaker boat, which I thought was really cool. And then a cryogenic freezing, just like they go into stasis whenever like the temperature drops, and they just, I don't know, maybe burrow, go into stasis, everything freezes solid and come back out when it hasn't. But I will have to talk to my chemist friend again, because, like I said, like an idiot, I asked them for HCl, how to solve the HCl ice problem, and not HF. So there will be more follow-up on that next time. Anything to add, Bill?
I have nothing to add.
Oh God, I'm so sorry. We had a big long discussion about it, and it's all right off. Have you got anything to follow up on? Anything else other than the ice problem?
We got another suggestion about underground astrology from Gray Ackerman.
Underground astrology being, do you want to give the TLDR?
So I think two podcast episodes ago, I spoke a bit about the Binni, a group of people in one of my con worlds. and it was mentioned that they had some kind of art or some kind of craft known as underground astrology, or translated as underground astrology. And I did not explain what that was, but I wanted to hear what the listeners might interpret it as. And Gray's suggestion was that it's divination from threads of silk in gemstones. I guess that means flaws in gemstones. Are the geometric patterns when light is shined through at specific angles, such as asterisk and cat's eye gemstones. That's pretty cool. Now, I'm assuming that asterisk and cat's eye gemstones are particular ways of carving them. That they're... Oh no, maybe not. Cat's eye is an actual gem, isn't it? Maybe asterisk is...
No idea. I'm Googling now.
Asterisk gemstone.
Oh wow! Did these cat's eye gemstones come out as being perfectly round? Surely they're machined to be like that.
I've no idea.
Wow.
Asterism. Maybe I read that wrong. Asterism gemstone is a phenomenon of gemstones experiencing a star-like concentration of reflected or refracted light when shaped and polished rather than faceted. So yeah, it has to do with how they're shaped.
Oh well, that doesn't make theory any worse. Like, as in, you take the gemstones, work it, and then you'd read like flaws or whatever, like features in it based on the working. There could be a whole like ritual tied to it. It could be really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. What I was thinking was that it would be rendered difficult by the fact that you would have a control over what effects it produces by the fact that you're shaping it. If you see what I mean?
Yeah, man, you could easily like hand wave that away, as in like the art of shaping it is part of the like magic. You know, only those with the select few ritual knowledge can shape this in order to like get a message from the rocks or whatever.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. Yeah, that there's a few ways to interpret that. That makes sense.
I like it. I think it's really cool.
The cat's eye effect, it looks like it is natural. It arises from the structure of a material or from fibrous inclusions or cavities within the stone. So that's a natural one.
Doesn't that look so badass?
It looks very cool.
Like, I had no idea that was a thing. That's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Huh. There you go. That's a really great suggestion. Is it close to what you were thinking?
Not at all.
It's class. Oh my god! You know what's gonna happen, Bill? Right? The thing you were thinking is gonna like. No offense at all to you, right? But it's gonna pale in comparison to what everyone's been putting forward, because you know where there's like this expectation thing where when a thing is hidden, everyone's like, oh my god, it hasn't been talked about, it must be the greatest thing ever, it has to be better than all of the things discussed so far combined. And then if you actually do go to reveal it, everyone might be like, oh, I like Gray's thing better.
Possibly.
Secrecy is a double-edged sword, I always think.
Yeah.
You know, if you keep things secret, there is a hype with it, but also the expectations sometimes get out of hand really fast. That's cool. Anything else to
add? That's everything on my end, I think.
Okay, I would like to do some shit flag corner.
Yep.
But this is kind of like a double-edged shit flag corner, in that it's both good flag and shit flag.
Oh wow!
Yeah, we've got a best of both worlds here in this one. The great hunt for the elusive flag from somewhere in Africa from last time, Bill, that you called for, has been found, and I'm going to butcher this, but it's the Katumo state flag. And Bill, I need to complain, right? Because you were like, oh, it was a terrible flag. This is like, it'll be in the show notes. Go check in the show notes, people. This is not by, like, we have reviewed so much worse flags than this. So much worse. This is, compared to some of the nonsense we've looked at, Bill, right? This is practically fine art.
From a design point of view, there's a lot that it does right, but that one image is ridiculous, and that just makes the whole thing absurd.
The horse is ridiculous. To be fair, it is very ridiculous. It really looks very, very Photoshop. But like again, it's this secrecy and expectation things. You know the way like you paint an image of the thing, and in my head I was kind of like, oh, it's going to be this utter disaster train wreck of a thing. It's going to look like a meme or like like crappy internet aesthetic that you often see. It's going to look like that. But it was just like, oh no, it's a fairly decent flag that they just made one error on. They stuck a horse, a photoshopped bronze horse with a rider on the hoist side of the thing.
I don't know. I think that's enough.
Yeah, and again, it's not good. A link to the show notes, people. You can go check it out. Where is this place? This place is in
North Somalia.
North Somalia, huh? There's a picture on the Wikipedia page of people holding flags, and they have strategically excluded the horse. Or maybe that's just the Somali flag. I don't know. But I like the way that we just like.
Is that the women?
The women, yes.
The kind of 4 women. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's just the Somali flag.
Ah, sugar. I was thinking like I love the way we don't speak of the horse. Don't mention the horse. Anyway, yeah. So that is the part of Flag Corner. It's not a good flag. The good part of Flag Corner. I was.
Sorry, and want to thank Asmodean _ who went and found it.
Yeah, sorry, Asmodean _ of Artifexian podcast fame, Artifexian podcast highlights fame. Links in the show notes, so you can go check it out.
Thank you very much for that, Asmo.
I'm glad because I was at the end of the show. I was like, oh, I really want to know what this flag is, and I thought it wouldn't be found. So well done. But yeah, anyway, so that is the bad side of Flag Corner. The good side of Flag Corner is I was knocking around Reddit recently. I think in the last, I don't know, like 2 weeks or so. And a person, some designer from somewhere, took it upon themselves to design a set of flags for the various municipalities in Iceland who apparently do not have flags. So this person was creating original content from scratch and was basing it loosely off the seals that the various municipalities have. And to credit this guy, to credit this person, this is u/be nimble, be quick, which is a great name.
Can I open this up now?
Open it up. This will be in the show notes for you guys. I think this is class. I think it's so good.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So overall, do you think it looks good? First impressions?
Some of them are a bit busy.
Mm-hmm.
But they're very, they're very clean and very straightforward. I know that sounds kind of strange to say that they're busy and they're straightforward, but like there's few elements in most of them.
Mm-hmm. Yes, some of them are a lot better than others. Like if we take second row down, 3 in from the left, like that isn't a great flag, I don't think.
The kind of boxy one.
The one that looks like, the one that looks like you're hallucinating. Like that isn't a great flag, but something like, say for example, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, sixth row down at the very, very end, the one that looks a bit like the Seychelles. I think that's a class flag. I think it looks really good. And the most impressive thing for me is the fact that they all kind of look like a family, even though the color scheme is kind of. It's not like this person hasn't limited themselves to like 2 or 3 colors. Like you've got reds, yellows, blues, blacks, whites. Like there's a whole bunch of colors in there, but they just all look like a family. And as well, they all
there's a lot of white, blue, and green.
There is a lot of white, blue, and green. Definitely. But nevertheless, I think they all work together really well. So I think this is a great, just amazing thing, and it's so cool seeing them place the seals next to the flag and seeing how they take a seal and turn it into a flag that isn't just a seal on a blanket. I think this person has done an amazing job.
Cool, I approve.
Yeah, links in the show notes. People can go check it out. You can use it as a bit of flag inspiration if you were flag building. Yeah. Anything else to add?
No, just good work. Being will be quick. So I've returned to Janspar.
Okay. We won't know anything about what's going on.
And this is a little bit about the funeral practices of one of the nations within Janspar.
Cool. Awesome. Let's go for it.
The mountainous land of Talpa, home to the barbaric race of the same name, is a curious place. The people there, of all mortality in Dutherum, are furthest from the glory of the peak. They were the last nation on the continent to abandon their ancient ways, and legends speak of great walls and fortresses barring the mountain passes between Talpa and neighbouring lands, to prevent them warring upon the nations below. Their worship is debased, closer to antithermal worship than true veneration of the peak. Their art is crude, presenting the gods in simple forms without regard for their glory, but it is in their deaths that they commit the greatest offence against the faithful. It is well understood that the civilized people of Janspar differ greatly in their death rites. The feasts and pyres of Pircho are as different from the lengthy funerary processions of Salaka as they are from the infamous dirges of the Shabani. In Jufane, the funeral is an affair only for the deceased and the priests. In Fitzili, the entire community aid in carrying the body in its funerary boat and burning it on a river or at sea. However, with the sole exception of Talpa, all enlightened nations of Janspar know that to allow a mortal to leave this worldly existence, their body must be cremated. In Talpa, it is not so. A mountainous land with thin soil, the death priests of Talpa lack the wood to build funeral pyres. In place of proper rites, the bodies are laid in towers adjoining to their temples. These curious structures, open to the sky, allow the carrion birds inhabiting that country to descend and feast upon the flesh of the deceased. This practice, clearly antithermal in its origin, persists to this day, despite centuries of knowledge of the peak. After the bodies have been stripped of all flesh, the bones are retrieved by the priests and taken into the deep recesses of their temples. It is not known how they are disposed of thereafter, though rumours abound of the priests fashioning bone tools and ornaments, or grinding them up to use in foul magics. Llewellyn Pamphlet, AR 1655.
Alright, so death rites. First question is, why death rites?
It's just a thing I had in my mind for a while. I haven't spoken much, if at all, about this country before, but that was one of the ideas I had for Talpa, is that instead of cremating their deceased, as is practiced in most of Janspar, they perform this sort of sky burial.
Yeah, I don't think we have heard from the Talpa at all. I think this is the first time.
Okay.
The sky burial thing, this sounds familiar. I think this is based off real life.
Yeah, so sky burial, as far as I know, I'm not going to present myself as an expert or anything here, but as far as I understand, is practiced in Tibet. And again, it's for the same reasons. Like they traditionally, I think they didn't have a lot of wood for cremation. There isn't a lot of soil there to bury people in. At least that's my understanding of it. That may not be the case, but what they do, or what I've heard that is practiced there, is the bodies are left on mountainsides for vultures and things, and then the bones are retrieved, which is pretty cool and a pretty compelling image. And the thing about the towers is something similar was practiced in, I think, ancient Persia. They were called Well, there's a weird thing. There was like some Orientalist in relatively modern times called them the Towers of Silence, but I think he just made up that name. But that's what they're known as in scholarship for some reason. So there was Towers of Silence that were like built out outside of towns, and they were like open-topped towers so that vultures could get inside and eat the flesh. That was how they disposed of their dead.
That's the thing that I remember. That sounds familiar. The Tibet thing I didn't know about, but that sounds familiar. Yeah, and your thing is almost exactly like, it's almost a direct analog, aside from the obviously grinding up to using magics. Would cultures like Tibet or Persia, so as far as you know, would they use the bones afterwards for like bone tools, like you say, or is that an invention of yours?
Absolutely no idea. Also bear in mind that this is some guy who clearly doesn't particularly like the Talpan people saying that they do that. So, unreliable narrator as is common.
That's fair. Two things on that. I have been listening. I mentioned this in the last show. I've been listening to Dan Carlin's Hardcore History, which is a wonderful podcast. Everyone should go listen to it, and listen to it now because they have a habit of monetizing their back catalogue. So the older stuff you have to pay for. So listen to it now while it's free. But I was listening to a thing on the Achaemenid Persians recently. And apparently the main source we have from that era is a guy called Herodotus. Now I'm not great on my history from this era and that neck of the world. But apparently, it's Herodotus, and apparently he is horrifically unreliable. And every second sentence is Dan Carlin saying, and this is what Herodotus said, but bear in mind, it's Herodotus. And I kept thinking like, it's Bill. This is what Bill does.
That's the aesthetic I'm going for.
All of Bill's characters are effectively Herodotus. And the other thing is I was watching a Netflix series over the past number of days called Dark Tourism or Dark Tourist. I can't remember exactly what it was called. Cool. And it's basically this dude who's a poor man's Louis Theroux goes around the world to like dark tourist attractions, like things that are macabre or dangerous and things like that. And one of the episodes, which relates to this whole debt rights thing, was in Indonesia. I can't remember the island, but it's not Java and it's not Bali, because I would have remembered that because I've been there. But on one of the islands, the death custom is that they don't view life and death as being kind of very on off, like either you're alive or you're dead. They view it more like once you die, you're kind of like transitioning to death. So it's like they think they use more terms like the person is sleeping and things like that, or they never really truly die, which is a very interesting concept. And they take the person who's dead, they mummify them, or whatever it is. They make sure they don't rot or whatever. They'll bury them, and then every year they'll dig them back up again, give them a clean down, present gifts and tokens and various things that they might need in the afterlife and all sorts of jazz, and then put them back in the ground. And that happens every year. And there's a big like festival, and there's like animal sacrifice and all sorts of jazz. And in the documentary, they unearthed like a woman who had been dead for 17 years, and which was just, it was amazing to watch because all the locals were perfectly okay with death. And they were perfectly like, what's so abnormal about this? Like, and the guy who was given the documentarian was like so put out by this because we live this overly sanitized life in the West. Like, we don't ever see death. We know nothing of death. And he couldn't deal with being confronted with it. And the Indonesians were just like, yeah, man, it's grand. We shut up. Like, what's wrong? So I thought that was a very interesting death ritual. And your piece made me think of that.
Cool.
Yeah, very, very cool.
Thank you.
So as always, what are your thoughts? You always nearly have something that I can't pick out on that you mentioned.
I don't think I do. I mean, it's a pretty short one this month, I'm afraid. There is one small thing. Where did I write this here? Legends speak of great walls and fortresses barring the mountain passes between Talpa and neighbouring lands to prevent them warring upon the nations below. Now, the obvious thing people are going to pick up on there is Game of Thrones.
Is it obvious?
Well, like the wall.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's fair, yeah.
But you're wrong, if that's what you think. I originally got that idea years and years ago. There's a story that Alexander the Great, I think, built a huge wall to block off the nations of Gog and Magog from the rest of the world, and that's what originally gave me the idea for this story within Janspar.
What are those nations? What is Gaul and Magog or whatever it is?
Gog and Magog. They're mentioned in the Bible. They're mentioned in the Book of Revelations, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like sort of horrible, warlike nations, kind of evil countries. And I don't know how the Alexander the Great thing got tied into it, but there is some legend from somewhere that while he was conquering across Persia, he went to Gog and Magog, and there was a wall built around them. To repel them.
But as in, like, where would they be in modern times?
Oh, they're not like an actual place, but I think they're meant to be like the Caucasus or something.
Okay, all right, okay, that's fair.
I'm not 100% sure of that though.
Man, what's because again, I'm not great with my history, and I've only just begun to really get into it with this Dan Carden thing, and he has begun mentioning stuff about Alexander the Great.
Yeah.
What's the shtick with this guy? Do we like him? Is he generally accepted as being like a good guy of history, or is he an evil guy? Or I know that he like was undefeated, and I think he was a drunk. Those are like there's one thing for sure, the first thing, and the second thing I believe is correct, but that's really all I know about him. Like is he like the Greek Hitler, or is he like, I don't know, like the Greek George Washington?
How do you define good or bad when you were dealing with history that long ago? Whether he was Greek is kind of a point of contention, because he was Macedonian, which were sort of, I think they were broadly speaking part of the Hellenic world at the time, but they were kind of seen as being outsiders, or seen as being a bit barbaric compared to other Hellenic nations, I think.
Okay.
And he accomplished an unbelievable amount in a fairly short life. I mean, he lived till his mid-30s, I think.
Oh, right.
Yeah, like he died quite young, and he basically got as far as India.
Oh,
so
really?
he conquered Greece, which as I said, he was kind of an outsider too. So I'm interested. Yeah, what age was he when he died?
Wow, and what did he die of?
Doesn't say. I'm not sure. I did know at one point, but I can't remember. Okay. He was 32 when he died. That was it. Jesus God.
He died of malaria.
Yeah.
According
looks
to
like.
Yeah.
So he conquered Greece. So that was like, Athens and Sparta and like all those kind of powerful Greek nations. He conquered Egypt. So a lot of the stuff we think of in Egyptian history, like Cleopatra and stuff, Cleopatra was Greek.
Right. Okay.
She was. There's a name for it. The Ptolemaic, is that what the dynasty was? That they were essentially they were descended from Greeks. They weren't kind of native Egyptians. They had been they were an invader dynasty, And he conquered the Persian Empire, which at that time went kind of from Turkey. So he conquered all of Turkey, which isn't a small country. The modern Middle East, modern Iran, and a large part of Pakistan. And I think he got pretty much to what the border of India now is.
And like, is the only reason this stopped because he died?
Well, his armies began to mutiny, I think, or they began to become very discontent because they'd been campaigning for well over a decade. And they're like, we are so far away from home. Can we please go home?
Oh, that's brilliant. That's bad.
So yeah, I think he destroyed the Iranian Empire, which was a huge deal. Like the Iranian Empire was a huge deal. And then his empire didn't outlive his death. It was broken up into 4 or 5 different empires, one of which was Egypt, which eventually became the kind of Ptolemaic dynasty and Cleopatra and all that, hundreds of years later. There was a couple kind of then taken over from Persia. I think there was 5 in total, something like that. But yeah, he was a fascinating dude.
Oh, yeah, again, I'm going to push you on this, but and I know it's hard to answer, but like, surely there must be general sort of ideas to if this guy was good or bad. Like, as in, when he brought empire across the world, were the people under his reign better off or worse off? Because you know the way, like with the Persians, when the Persians came along and like the Achaemenid Persians, and they took out Assyria and all of that, they replaced a like horrific regime with something that was comparatively much better. Like not good, but comparatively much better. So one can say, and I think most people do say, that like the Persian Empire was quite inclusive, and there was a lot.
That's Cyrus.
Yes, I think Cyrus started it, and then it was like Darius and all the way up to Xerxes.
Right.
Did Xerxes mess it up? I can't remember. But so do we have a similar thing with Alexander? Like did his empire, was it a net improvement for the world, or do you have any idea about this?
I don't know. I would guess, my guess would be no, because he messed up the Persian Empire, which, as you said, had a lot of good stuff going for it. And also he took a stable status quo and like caused it to be at war for about a decade, and then died and replaced it with chaos because there was a power vacuum there. So I guess in terms of quality of life for the people in his parts of the world, probably a net negative.
Okay, hold on. When you Google "was Alexander the Great," the first suggestion is Greek or Macedonian.
Well, you see, that's a thing at the moment, because the Greeks want to claim him as their kind of culture, and the Macedonians want to claim him as their culture. But modern Macedonia and like Hellenic era Macedonia are quite distinct. But also, he wasn't really Greek at that time, so
yeah. But was there even a Greek at that time? Like, because I thought when we say, when we think Greek and we think like Sparta and all that sort of jazz, the impression I get is that really what it is just a load of like city-states. Like, there is no homogenous Greece. Do you know what I mean?
There's not a homogenous kind of single polity, but they had a shared language, and there was a degree of there was a largely shared culture.
Right. Okay. That makes sense. If anyone's an Alexander the Great fan, tell me about this person. Because it smells of, again, because I know literally nothing about him, it smells an awful lot like, because he was on the side of like Western powers, so to speak, he gets labeled the Great. In many ways, like the Persian Empire gets dismissed because they were not Western. And yeah, Alexander the Great smells of an awful lot of kind of like, he was great because he was on our team. And I wonder, is that the case?
There's a sort of a Western chauvinism at play.
Yeah, and I don't know if there is, but it smells of it. Like, it really smells of it. But yeah. Anyhow, back to debt rising. Very cool, man. Very, very cool.
Thank you very
I
much.
like the assimilation of the real world elements. I like that there's complexity and not all the same. Yeah, really, really cool. Have you got anything else to add?
I think that is everything.
Cool.
I think that is everything.
Shall we do some Edgar world building?
Let's move on to Edgar.
Or rather, Conlang. So, as always, I made a video. That video was called Verbal Aspect and Navajo Madness. So this is a video about verbal aspect. And as always, I've got some corrections coming up here. First one loads of people point this out, like every Italian in the world pointed this out, but the one I noted was Mr. Atomic Kraigstan. From YouTube, who said that my conjugation of the Italian imperfetto was incorrect. The third person ending is meant to be AVA and not AVAM. I just misspelled that, so apologies to that.
Right.
Which I don't mean to like say it's okay, Edgar, to myself, but it's not the worst mistake in the world. And the point still stands that the point I was making still holds. Now, the big correction I need to make, and this one I am truly sorry for, comes via Aaron Otto, and this is he's on YouTube. And I'm just going to read his words straight out because I think that they're really well put. I really like the channel. I just wish, as I am a Native American, you would have not used such a stereotypical phrase in the Navajo example to show your point. I know this was not intentional and you meant nothing by it. It just jumped out as me as an interesting choice to use a stereotype like that to illustrate the point. Thank you for your great content and continued education. So, yeah, I'm sorry. For those who haven't seen the video, there's a big, the title is obviously called Navajo Madness, so there's a huge emphasis on the Navajo language. And one of the examples I give, I think in English, it reads as, when my husband drinks, I leave, which is a pretty dark thing. And I kind of clocked it when I was in the research. I was like, that's very, very dark. But like, I didn't have anything else because I was going on the sources I was going on, and that was what was there. And it was the clearest example of the distinction between the usidative and the iterative aspect. Again, watch the video for context on that. But it turns out, I did not notice that Native Americans apparently are seen, the stereotype of Native Americans is drunk, like wife beaters. And I didn't realize that at all. I thought the stereotype was that all Native Americans are like hippies who are in tune with the earth. I did not realize that there was this other stereotype. So I inadvertently played into that, and I'm very, very sorry. And I had no idea. But I want to thank Aaron Otto for being cool and not like shouting at me and understanding that like, hey, he doesn't know. He's not from America. He doesn't know. And just pointing it out and being like, really sound about it. And I left the response and he responded again. And the entire time, he was just lovely about it. And that's great. So yeah, heads up on that, people. There's a stereotype there. Be warned. But proceed with caution. Yeah?
Fair enough. Yeah. I mean, that was a stereotype I was aware of.
Yeah, man, it never crossed my mind at all. Like, I just think of Americans, Native Americans, as being like the Pocahontas thing. Like, I think of like that's how people view Native Americans, and I know that's
wrong.
The
stereotype you're familiar with. Yeah,
yeah, and I knew that was wrong because it paints an simplistic. It paints an entire culture with the same brush oversimplistically. But I'd never heard of like the alcohol abuse and the domestic violence. At all. So, yeah. You learn something new on the internet, and sometimes you have to learn it publicly, and that's terrible.
Yeah, this was a cool video.
Thanks, man. Yeah, sorry. So those are 2 corrections. What do you think? What questions have you got?
Periphrasis.
Periphrasis, okay.
Which is using a word to indicate something that could otherwise be indicated by inflection.
Yeah, a word or words.
Okay, can that be like limited or defined a little bit more? Because surely you could in theory, do everything with inflection. It's just the language chooses not to.
Yeah, that's a really interesting question, actually. That's not a thing that I've ever considered. I don't know if there's a more defined thing of that. Hold on. Periphrasis.
Like, are there other conditions to put onto that?
I don't know. No, I'm looking through it here, and most of the things just basically say what I said. But like, yeah, you're right. You need to constrain a little bit more, because otherwise the whole bleeding sentence could be considered to be playing into this periphrasis thing. I don't know how that constraint would happen. I don't know what constitutes the words that would otherwise be conveyed by an inflection. But yeah, there must be a more high level definition of it.
Or some kind of context to that I'm missing. Like words that like could be conveyed by inflection according to how things are already inflected in the language.
Oh yeah, that would be one way of looking at it. But then that definition would not hold up for like English, because we do very little inflection anyways. Like we can't go like, oh, the would have been is periphrasis, because it could otherwise be conveyed by X inflection. We don't have that inflection. We just have the words. So I don't know. It's problematic. Maybe it's so problematic that that's why we have an open-ended definition of it. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Any other questions on that, or anything else on the periphrasis?
Nothing else in the periphrasis.
I strongly encourage people to read Aspect by Bernard Comrie. It's a great book. I know I mentioned this at the end of the video, but seriously, go check it out. It's like got everything you need to know about Aspect, and every single source on the internet that talks about Aspect is referring to that book. I found it mind blowing. Every time I found a thing, it'll be like major source, Comrie, Aspect, 1976. So that's like the go-to thing if you want to learn about it. I'll leave a link in the show notes.
Cool.
One last point, real quickly. I just think it was a really cool thing because it's Irish related. In Irish, there's a cool aspectual thing. This got cut from the video because of time reasons. But we'd say something like time. Correct my Irish if I'm wrong here, Bill. But we'd say something like tá sé in a he. Yeah.
Yeah. He is sitting.
He is sitting. Tá sé in a he, and English speakers will be like, he is sitting is progressive, like he is in the process of sitting right now. But in Irish, it glosses almost like he is in his sitting, like he is located in his sitting. And there's this cool thing that like Scots Gaelic and Welsh and Irish does, and I'm sure other languages as well, but those are ones noted in the literature, of this sort of conflating location and the progressive aspect. And I think that's really, really cool. There are some German dialects that do similar. Like you might say like, ich bin am Essen, which is like, I am eating. But it's more like, I am at the eating. Like you're located at the eating. And for anyone who's going to cite that as being a mark against me with regards to the statement that German doesn't have aspect, it's a dialect, not standard German. That's a very important thing to remember. But might be a cool thing for conlanger is this idea of locating. Like I am in the eating. I am with the speaking. Like that's really a really cool thing to like wrap up into aspect and deliver. Yeah, I think that's really fun.
So is habitual be an aspect then?
What's habitual be? Sentence. Give me a sentence.
So it's a thing that you have in African American vernacular English, and you have something very similar in Irish English or in Hiberno English, which is I be something. So like I be going to school. Is that habitually you go to school? Or the way you'd say it in Irish English is I do be.
Oh, it could be, or it could just be progressive, couldn't it?
So yeah, but it's an aspect thing.
Yeah. As far as I'm aware, I do not purport to have any knowledge of African American vernacular English, but it sounds very aspecty.
But you speak fluent Hiberno English.
Yeah, but I don't say I do be going to the shop. Like that's not part of my lingo. Like,
right, but it's a thing you're familiar with.
Yeah. I
old people speaking like that.
Yeah. I hear it a lot. I remember hearing it a lot in the third person. Like he does be doing this.
Yeah.
He does. I don't think I've ever heard anyone say it in the first person. Like, I do be going to the shop. That's weird to me. Whereas
Really?
third person.
It sounds like an old person to me, but it's definitely something that's familiar.
Yeah, no, it's definitely an old thing. It's definitely an old thing. But yes, that sounds like aspect to me. But anyone who's more familiar with like these things can let me know if it is anything else. So yeah, that's my aspect video. Should we do a bit of green room? All right. Okay. What have you been watching?
Well, I know what you've been watching.
Well, why would you know such a thing, Bill?
From the references in your video.
I would never put in ham-fisted references like that.
Yeah, so what do you think of Steven Universe?
Steve, what do you think I think of Steven Universe?
I think you like it, but maybe with a few reservations. It takes a while to get going, and it can be a little... It takes a little while to find its feet, so it can be kind of a little bit annoying or something in the very early episodes. So I think that might be a reservation that you have.
Okay. All right. So, any other reservations, or should I give you my thing?
I'm not sure. Nothing I'm willing to commit to.
Okay. So, your reservation is completely unjustified. Had you not told me that it takes a while to get going, I wouldn't even have noticed. What episode am I on? I must be on like episode 30 something, maybe.
Yeah, you haven't finished season 1.
I have not finished season 1, and sadly,
oh boy,
sadly, I can only do season 1 because there's only season 1 on Netflix. There's 5 seasons, but they're not on Netflix. That's terrible. What's with that?
None of them are as long as season 1, though. The rest of them are much shorter seasons.
Okay, like I'd rather not pirate them, but I don't know. I might have to. Yeah, so I didn't think it was annoying. I didn't think it took a long time to get going. I thought it was grand. Again, coming from Star Trek land, where many seasons of mediocre television are totally okay. This was not a problem. I think Steven Universe so far is brilliant. It is absolutely brilliant. There's no reservations whatsoever. It's just the most joyous, it's just the most feel-good, joyous bit of like candy floss ever. It is fantastic, and I have bonded with Stephen. Like myself, the captain, were watching it, and like so often we pause and we're like, Stephen is you, Edgar. You are Stephen. This sort of like naive, sort of overly happy, bouncy person who just always sees the positives and is like half the time unaware of his surroundings and will just like, I don't know, say or do things that like real adults will not say or do. Like that's totally me, and I've completely imprinted on Stephen. Something serious. On a more serious note, the gender politics is good in it.
Mm-hmm.
I think because we live in a world, despite it being 2018, we live in a world where one cannot openly talk about trans issues and mainly trans issues, but also to a certain degree like women and things like that. You can't talk about them too openly because again, the thing is ran by men, and as such, people need to get very creative. And I think the way the people who made Steven Universe have framed the discussion of these points is so brilliantly creative. Like the songs, you know, like Giant.
Sorry, I pulled up my headphone jack. Can you go from framed, please?
I basically said how they frame it is very, very creative. And then, do you know the Giant Woman song?
I love Giant Woman. I think that's a brilliant episode, and it's a great song.
It's a great song, and it's a brilliant episode. And if you listen to the lyrics are very kind of trans, and it's okay. Like as in, like they have found this creative outlet to try and like get this across. And I think that's really cool.
The line, "If it were me, I know I'd surely be a giant woman."
Yeah, and I'm assuming that's deliberate. Like maybe it's not, but I read it as being it's kind of like opening up kids television to this concept that there are trans people in the world. And I think that's great. I think it's really done really, really well, and it's done in a real positive, happy, inclusive. It's just it's class. I love it so much.
I wouldn't have read that as directly as that. but I would have read it as Stephen being comfortable with nonconformity, with gender nonconformity, that he's not threatened in his masculine identity by femininity or by being feminine.
Right, but
so it's not exactly the same, but it's going the same direction.
Right, exactly, and it's still delivering it to an audience that otherwise may not have heard that.
Yeah.
And I think it's done in a very creative way, because had they spelled it out exactly, I think a lot of people would have had problems with it, and there might have been like a huge backlash and all the sort of usual crap that happens. And they've done it so well. And is it Rebecca Sugar, the person who's responsible for it? Like, she seems just great. Like, I've heard her sing Giant Robot a couple of times, and she seems just like a class human being. So the whole thing is just amazing. I think the characters are great. It's just I love it. I think it's just such a great show. I'm so glad I started watching it, and I cannot wait to finish it off and see what the crack is. It's really great.
It gets so much better as well. Like, it gets so much more interesting and so much more nuanced.
Yeah, I felt it getting to that point, you know, like the last episode we watched was the one where Connie's parents wanted to meet Stephen and his parents.
Oh, fusion cuisine.
I don't look at the episode names. It could be that, and it's where they all combine, all three of them, into a big giant scary woman. And
where you meet Alexandrite for the first time, yeah,
and where they go for dinner together and things like that. And that was a more nuanced discussion about, like, you know, nuclear family versus modern families and things like that. And whereas at the start it was very much just like fun and games with the gems, and now I'm beginning to see there's like serious commentary creeping in here.
Well, it's a story about a young boy being raised by his three mums, but he also is his mum, kind of.
Which is mad. And I love his dad as well. His dad is just class.
Yeah, Greg's a great character. Greg's a great character.
He's just a great character. Like it, and the thing is, like, he's not played off as a idiot, right? Because again, you could see it going a way where it's kind of like the three moms are like super powerful, super wonderful, and things like that, and then let's all make fun of the lad. But like, there are loads of times where he comes to Stephen, gives him great advice, and is a real good force in Stephen's life, and he's real sweet and real caring, and it forces you to look beyond, like, you know, a guy with long hair who's balding, you know, like, you look at that and you're kind of like, oh, what a washed up a slob of a guy, but then you realize he's actually not a washed up slob. He's actually a really complex, nuanced person with valuable things to say. It's just class, man. The whole thing is great.
Yep.
Oh, I love it so much.
You're welcome.
No, seriously, thank you. And I'll let you know what I think about when I finish it. But I doubt at this stage, I don't think there's anything that's going to change my mind. I think it's just brilliant.
Have you seen the one with Stephen and the Stevens?
Yeah, where he goes back in time.
Yeah, that's so dark.
Yeah, man, it is, but it's also hilarious at the same time.
Oh no, it's also brilliant and hilarious.
Serious as well. Some gets real serious. Like even in the episode with Alexandrite, is that the name of the big one?
The fusion. Yeah, the big fusion.
Yeah. Even in that, like, it's all like really funny, as in like, oh, the gems are trying to, you know, pull their stuff together for Stephen and things like that, and like, oh, they can't do it, and slapstick comedy and all that. But at the same time, there's a real like dark sort of as in like Stephen realizing that he might be really abnormal because he doesn't have a nuclear family, and it's real sad, like. There's some real sad bits. Not that it's sad that a person doesn't have a nuclear family, but more like this kid has become sad because society tells him that that's the way it should be. And like, it switches from like dark to light to like comedy to like seriousness. It's just, and all in like 10 minutes, man. Like, it's just crazy. It's just absolutely crazy. But anyhow, I'm not going to gush all over Steven Universe for the rest of this podcast. Do you want to tell me about this franchise, in quotes, that you've been watching?
You haven't been on Facebook recently.
I have stopped using Facebook because Facebook is dirt.
Cool. So you won't have seen any of my statuses about the series I've been watching.
No, I've seen nothing, man.
Cool. So I've been watching an action film series recently.
Okay.
Would you care to guess what it is?
Is it on Netflix?
Several of the films are on Netflix. Yes, not all of them.
Oh, so it's a film series. Mission Impossible.
No,
Lethal
but
Weapon.
no, you're getting a bit further away there.
Die Hard. James Bond. Austin Powers.
Think more recent than that. Okay, the first film came out in 2001.
Oh God, Jesus!
There are now 8 films in the series so far. They're making more. Okay, and here's another clue. One of the main stars died.
Hold on.
While making one of the films.
Is it American Pie?
That noted bastion of action cinema.
Okay, hold on. Is it The Fast and the Furious?
It's The Fast and the Furious.
Now, I only got that because I googled list of feature film series with 8 entries. Okay, you've been watching Fast and the Furious. That is a complete non sequitur. Why the hell have you done this?
It turns out they're pretty good.
To be fair, I really liked 1 and 2, but I was of the age where tuner cars were cool when they came out. Like, I remember going, when I grew up, I'm going to have a car with a spoiler, and it's going to have like side skirts, and it's going to be great, and it's going to be painted in like that fluorescent stuff that were.
We would not have been friends when we were 13.
Yeah, man. And I remember there was a girl in my school who had like the cool tuner car, and I remember being like viscerally angry at the car because the parts list, from what I could tell, was just taken from Need for Speed. Right? Like, I was like, that's the legitimate same stuff that I have in my computer game. And like, I remember going up and inspecting the car and being all like, yeah, that's the same front bumper. And I was like, can you not be creative with this? God damn it. So I was a creative petrol head back in the day.
And now you're actively anti-car, aren't you?
I don't like cars whatsoever. I think cars are terrible, and they should stop. And please don't email me. I know people are going to email me about like I love driving. It's like, I know that's cool. I'm not into paying road tax and insurance and all of that extra cost in my life. But yeah, I really enjoyed the first 2 films. I really liked. They were mad and they were crazy, and yeah, it was great fun. I hear that they've gone just stupid though recently. Like, it's cars flying out of space shuttles and things like that.
They haven't been in space yet. No, they haven't gone that far
Yes.
So right, first one, pretty good film. Like, it's pretty good. It's nothing incredibly special, but it's a decent action flick. And essentially, and this is explicitly what they were trying to do. It's a remake of Point Break. Point Break is a film from the early 90s starring Keanu Reeves and Patrick Swayze, where there's a load of surfers that are doing bank robberies, and they're being, as far as they can tell, they're being led by Patrick Swayze. So Keanu Reeves has to become a surfer. He's an FBI agent. He becomes a surfer and infiltrates them. And but then he gets caught up with them, and there's all this like loyalty and stuff. I haven't seen it in years, and it's ridiculous. And Fast and Furious, The Fast and the Furious, the first one, is just a remake of that with cars instead of surfers.
Okay.
Right. And it's a perfectly decent cop film.
It's 53%
it's not great
on Rotten Tomatoes.
Say again?
It's 53% on Rotten Tomatoes.
I'd say it's a bit better than that.
Okay.
Too Fast, Too Furious is garbage.
is 36% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Like, it's really, really bad.
I remember liking it. Is that the one where they went to like? Did they go to Japan? There was a hot pink Honda S2000 in it. If I seem to remember.
I would not know what an S2000 looks like.
Here, man, just Google Honda S2000.
S2000.
Yeah, I seem to remember there being a hot pink one with decals coming from the back rear wheel, because decals were really cool in the 90s.
That's in the first one, apparently.
Oh.
No, sorry, not a pink one. That's just a regular colour one.
A regular colour.
A real colour. Yeah, Suki. Suki has one in the second one. Yeah.
Yes. Get in, Edgar.
And then, okay, so the third one is unrelated to the previous two.
Right.
And takes place in Tokyo. And people slate it. It's a good film.
37% on Rotten Tomatoes.
I strongly disagree. It's a solid film. It's the thing about it is, right, the driving is actually fun to watch in that one. In the other two, the driving was boring and annoying and not interesting.
Okay.
They start shooting the driving sequences really well in the third one.
Okay.
That's what I thought. And I thought it was a straightforward, doesn't have any pretensions about itself, and there's an absolutely amazing, because it's all about the drift scene in Tokyo.
Tokyo Drift.
Yeah, exactly. Who knew? What's the really famous like pedestrian crossing place in Tokyo?
There's a famous pedestrian crossing.
Oh,
in Tokyo.
you'd recognize it if you Shibuya Station, I think, maybe. Hold on.
Is that the
Google
place? Is that the place where loads of people go almost in cosplay to hang out?
No.
Okay. Spell sh.
SHIBUYA.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, jeez, that looks like absolute chaos. Holy moly! What are they doing?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's there. There's a scene where in one of the chase scenes, they drift through that, like, as there's a load of people crossing the road and the crowd parts, and it's a brilliantly shot scene. It's amazing. It's so, like, visually impressive. So that's really good. Like, I'm not going to go through all of them and rank them, but what I love about it is it gets progressively more ridiculous from the fourth film.
From Fast and Furious, which has 29% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Again, I would give it a bit higher. It's not as bad. It's better than 2. It's definitely better than 2.
So from Fast and Furious, not to be confused with The Fast and The Furious, it gets progressively more ridiculous. Okay, continue.
Yeah. So the premise of the very first film, as I said, it's a cop infiltrating this group of criminals, or people he thinks is a group of criminals. And what the crime is in the first one is ripping off DVD players. They're hijacking lorries and stealing DVD players and TVs and stuff, right?
Oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah, that was weird. Even at the time, it was kind of like, DVDs? Really?
Well,
just
DVD players.
Or like, would you not just like hijack some, like a what you call the vans that transport the money? The vans.
Yeah, security vans.
Security vans. Yeah, would you not
Secure
hijack them? They have money in them. It's way easier than DVDs.
Also, way higher risk though.
Oh, that's fair. Anyway, yeah, continue.
So that's what the first film is about. By the seventh film, I haven't seen the eighth film yet. I watched the seventh film last night. By the seventh film, they're rescuing kidnapped spies and like getting involved in like international terrorism.
In their cars.
They start off driving kind of, decent regular cars, tuned up ones and, ones for street racing. In the seventh film, there is one car that costs millions, literal millions of dollars.
Do you know what this car is?
Hold on, I'll check. F7's supercar. It's the Lycan Hypersport. Yeah, like I love the escalation involved there. They start off ripping off DVD players, and like they're stealing millions of dollars by the fifth film, and from then beyond, it gets completely absurd, and I love it. It's a really really entertaining series.
And do you know what the last film's about?
I haven't seen it yet, but I know there's a submarine in the trailer.
Oh, for Jesus Christ.
They started off stealing DVD players.
Oh man. I've actually considered watching them again because I know The Rock is in them, isn't he?
The Rock is in it from the 5th one, yeah. He's okay in them. He has a couple of ropey acting moments.
Yeah, man, I love The Rock because of that. He can't really act, but he's great and he's really fun.
And he's just got so much charisma.
He does. He's a really... What do you think about the idea that The Rock might run for president?
I think that's terrible.
Do you not just need someone who is just how much does the president actually need to be good at this job? Like, because Trump's surviving. Like, he has not yet got assassinated or booted out. Like, maybe it's a thing that you just need a charismatic person, and then all the like henchmen in the wings of the White House do all the actual work, and you just talk. The Rock could be really good at talking, man.
Yeah, but he also, I don't think he would have much to say on the legislative agenda because he's not a career politician, or he's got no political experience.
Okay, all right, I'm with you a lot. Like I am,
the demands on the president's time would be such that The Rock wouldn't be able to work out all the time anymore, and that would be a disaster. That he wouldn't be super huge anymore.
That would be a disaster for everyone involved. Yes,
because the fact that The Rock is super huge is one of like the best things about him, because he's really huge.
He's quite big. He's quite.
He is. Have you gone back and seen what he looked like as a wrestler?
I watched somewhat recently. I watched his first fight where he was like, oh, what was he called? Like Rocky Balboa or something? No, that's the. No, he had
the boxer.
He had another name. He was dressed in blue.
Rocky Mavia.
Yeah, Rocky Mavia. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. If you go back and look at him when he was wrestling, say in like the late 90s, he looks like a little baby compared to what he looks like now. And he was a terrifying dude then, but now he has I think they invented extra muscles for him. He's massive.
Invented extra muscles. Yeah, he's very, very large. He's very, very large. But yeah, I'm glad you're watching Fast and Furious. That's class.
I have one more thing to say.
Yes, go for it.
It's essentially, I don't know if this counts as a hot take or not. It might be. It might seem kind of obvious, but I'm gonna delve into it a little. It's essentially the Grand Theft Auto film series.
As in as in the games. It is the film series to accompany the games.
More or less. They're pretty much doing the same thing in that both heavily about cars. But the way that they're really similar is in the escalation. Because if you've ever played any Grand Theft Auto, you start off as a kind of a small-time crook, for the most part. Maybe a little bit less so in GTA 5, because there's the kind of backstory with Michael and everything. That's not relevant. You start off small-time, and you beat up some drug dealers, and you steal a few cars, and maybe you do a few street races. But always, in the course of the game, you get involved with some kind of law enforcement. Or I think at GTA 5, you're essentially, you end up being handled by the CIA. And it gets progressively more ridiculous, where by the end of the game, you have a huge mansion somewhere, you have ridiculous technology, and you have ridiculous cars. And you're no longer just stealing cars or whatever. You're you steal tanks or you steal planes, and you're doing much higher scale things. So in the way that the film series progresses, the film Fast and Furious progresses, it's essentially following the serial escalation that you get when you play the Grand Theft Auto games.
I see where you're coming from. I would be inclined to say that I think Grand Theft Auto is a little bit more rooted in reality. Maybe that's because you get to see the progression. You get to see, starting off with humble beginnings, you just steal the car around the corner or whatever. And there seems to be a logical progression that leads you to the point where you're stealing planes or jumping out of planes or whatever. Whereas I get the impression with the Fast and Furious films, albeit I've only seen 2, that it's kind of it's just crazy. It's just crazy. There's no We don't know how the people got here. Really, it's just everything's all crazy, and less rooted in reality. I don't know.
It felt like a fairly logical progression to me as I watched them.
Yeah, I'm talking about more like internally in the movies. Like when I watched the first one, it was always just kind of like everything is this bonkers way because it is. Whereas in Grand Theft Auto, you start off with everything not being this bonkers way, and you build up to it. Do you know what I mean? I don't know. Your theory is good. I'm not sure I 100% agree.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's not like exactly the same. Grand Theft Auto is a lot more nihilistic, a lot more kind of amoral, whereas in Fast and the Furious, there's a big emphasis, especially kind of the second half of the series, on family.
Yeah,
and loyalty and stuff, which is less obvious or is less of a thing in the games, in the Grand Theft Auto games.
What's your favorite Grand Theft Auto?
I didn't get to play that much of 5 because my laptop won't run it well, but I really enjoyed what I did play of it. I liked the different characters, and I thought it struck a good balance between giving you kind of narrative freedom and giving a strong backstory. I mean, that's something that's very difficult to do in those kind of open world games, kind of sandboxy ones. They're either kind of too open or they're railroady. It's a hard act to. It's hard to strike the balance, but I thought GTA 5 did a good job on it. So possibly that. I really enjoyed 4 as I played it, but I wasn't that compelled by Nico. I didn't find Nico that interesting a character. It was just like he's come to America to. Sorry, have you played 4?
No.
Okay, well you're a Russian or Eastern European immigrant. I'm not sure if they ever exactly specify where you're from. Who goes to Liberty City, and you're kind of trying to start a new life and leave behind the violence of your past, is kind of what they say you're doing. But then you get straight into criminality like right away, and it's kind of felt like they just said that you were trying to get away, and you never actually play trying to get away. Vice City is cool, like it's got the 80s thing, it's all right. And San Andreas, I do really like San Andreas actually, because I love that era. I love like the early 90s California thing. But I have to say probably 5. I mean, just 5 is just really well put together, I thought.
My favorite would be 5 because the commentary in it, like just driving around listening to the radio, was like such cutting satirical commentary on America, basically, contemporaneous America. That was it was just a joy to behold, and it was witty and insightful and cutting, and it was great. But like I think that would be my best one. But like 3 was the only one of the series that felt really gritty to me. Like I really felt like I was a mobster. Like I really felt like this was like the city was a dark, dirty, disgusting place filled with evil people. That I just didn't get in all the other ones. They all seem too bright and happy, especially Vice City.
Right.
So it's Grand Theft Auto 5 for me, but followed by a really close second 3.
Okay.
But yeah, anyhow, anything else to add on all this, or should we wrap it up at, what does my little recorder say? 2 hours and 12 minutes.
Yeah, I've got 1:59, so yeah, will we leave it there? So
we will. Yeah, let's leave it there. Bill, as always, thank you for talking to me.
Edgar, as always, it's been a pleasure.
Hey, listeners, thanks for listening. Thanks a million to the Patreons for supporting the show and making it all possible. Oh, Bill!
What?
No, stop the record. Bill, sorry, we can't stop recording. I can't believe I forgot this. Bill, we got our first bit of Artifexian mail. Holy...
Did we?
Yes! Okay, we need to keep going. Hold on. I might put this at the start, okay? So, wait, let me just pry this open. So, we got our first bit of Artifexian mail. I don't know who this is from because it doesn't say. And the company that ships my mail from the UK have covered in stickers, so there's no name on this whatsoever. But I do know that this thing comes from LA. I'm not going to give the address, just it comes from LA. So that's class. It has flown halfway around the world to us.
Nice.
There is inside, there is a little card that says priority mail, which is kind of cool. And a card that says, thanks, Edgar. And what's this? This is a receipt of a thing. And then inside is I'll paint a picture first and I'll send you a picture. I'll paint a word picture first and I'll send you a picture. Inside is a small plastic pocket, right? Closed on 3 sides, opened on one. And inside said plastic pocket is a $1 bill. A United States of America $1 bill that is, for all intents and purposes, a normal bill, except that where is it George Washington is meant to be, whoever the dead president is, has been, there's a new picture been placed in that place, and it's Napoleon. Napoleon is in the middle. And then...
Yes!
And yeah, and his name is written there, and like on further inspection, clearly this person has stuck a picture of Napoleon on top, but it took me a while. I was like, did they get this custom made? And I held it up to the light and was like, holy cow, all the correct watermarks here. Like we have some fraudster in Artifexian, but no, it's just stuck on. So despite the fact that the mail says thanks Edgar, this is clearly a Bill thing. So what I might do, Bill, is I might send this down to you or bring it down to you Christmas or whatever, and you, if you want it, you can hold it, because I am not the one who has a timeless, ageless love affair with Napoleon. That would be you, sir.
Oh my god, can you send me that photo?
I will. Let me take a picture. Hold on. Where's my phone? My phone is in my pocket.
That's
what do you think?
Class.
Isn't that class?
That is very class.
It's so good. It's so cool. Oh, so good. So yeah, I will definitely. Listener, don't take offense at me sending this away. But clearly, this is a Bill thing. This is. Thank you so much for your thanks to me, but this needs to go to Bill if he's willing to have it. This needs to be housed
That's so good.
in Bill's shrine to Napoleon. For anyone else who would like to send stuff, please do send stuff, because this is actually really fun receiving things. It's really, really cool. I will, like last time, I'll leave the address, my sort of PO box thing in the description, and please send us any and all mail. We would love to receive it.
For sure, yeah.
Cool.
We're really pleased by that now.
It's so good. It's so good. Yeah. So let's leave it there, shall we?
Let's leave it there.
Thanks, Bill. Thanks so much for doing the podcast with me.
Thank you. It's a pleasure as always.
Thanks to the listeners for listening, and thanks to all the wonderful Patreons for making this happen. We will see you post the next video.
Talk to you very soon.
Edgar out.
Edgar out.